Do you feel that? Kael whispered, his voice tense but oddly curious, echoing in the metallic chamber. I think I like it, Mira replied, dipping a tentative finger into the shimmering liquid. Steam curled upward like the tendrils of some alien spirit. It's warm. Somehow perfect. Kael blinked, unsure if he should admire her fearlessness or warn her of the danger. Around them, the room vibrated with a low hum, faint but insistent, as if the walls themselves were whispering secrets. They had been told by the Aelari, the tall, silver-skinned alien species that now governed most of the sector, that this treatment was torture. But humans had a habit of translating fear into curiosity, pain into experience. Kael had a knack for questioning everything. Mira had a knack for surviving everything. Together, they made a team that the universe often underestimated. The liquid was strange, almost alive. Colors danced beneath its surface, not quite following the laws of light. Kael knew. It smelled faintly of ozone and honey, a scent that shouldn't exist together, and yet here it was, filling his senses. You're enjoying this, Kael said slowly, stepping closer. You shouldn't be enjoying this. Mira grinned, her wet hair clinging to her forehead. Or maybe we just see things differently. Maybe we don't scream the way they expect. Maybe. We make our own rules, Kael exhaled sharply. Aelari call it torture. They said humans cannot withstand it. And yet, he gestured to Mira, sitting comfortably, letting the liquid lap her skin like warm sunlight. Here you are. Outside the chamber, the Aelari observer hovered, its translucent wings catching the light in a way that made it seem almost fragile. Its voice was calm, but every syllable carried centuries of authority. Your species is unusual. Kael's heart thumped. The observer could sense thought, maybe even emotion, across a distance he couldn't measure. The Aelari had ways of reading fear, pain, pleasure, all things they considered weaknesses. But humans thrived in paradox. They turned discomfort into delight, uncertainty into strategy, chaos into art. Why do you humans smile at heat? At water? At things we call dangerous? The observer asked finally, its tone curious rather than accusatory. Mira lifted her arms, letting the warmth envelope her. Maybe because we can. Because it feels good, because maybe we're trying to show you there's strength in choosing joy when the universe tells you fear is the only option. Kael studied the observer. Its face betrayed nothing, yet its posture stiffened, subtle but undeniable. For a moment, the chamber felt smaller, like they were all floating inside a bubble of suspense. Then the walls began to shimmer, and the liquid reacted to the shift. Ripples ran across its surface, small but deliberate, like a warning. Time is finite, the observer said, its wings folding slightly. You have minutes. The word hit Kael like a pulse of cold. Whatever this was, it was a test, a challenge. And somewhere in the shadows of this alien game, consequences waited. Mira laughed softly, her eyes gleaming. Then we'll make those minutes count. Kael couldn't help but smile, though tension knotted his stomach. Humans always did this, faced impossible odds and smiled anyway. Maybe it was arrogance. Maybe it was instinct. Either way, it was dangerous, exhilarating, and impossible to ignore. A sound echoed from deeper within the chamber, a high-pitched hum, like water boiling in reverse. The liquid began to glow more intensely, bathing the room in shifting golds and purples. Kael's instincts screamed danger, but curiosity rooted him in place. Mira leaned back, eyes closed, letting the strange warmth embrace her. They call it torture, she said softly. We call it home. The hum grew louder, almost a pulse now, syncing with their hearts. Kael realized that every choice mattered. Every second was a decision. And in this room, between fear and thrill, humans were about to show exactly why they were never meant to be predictable. As the light expanded, shadows flickered along the walls, hinting at something massive moving beyond their sight. Something ancient. Something that had never encountered humans before. Kael glanced at Mira. Her grin told him she could feel it too. Whatever awaited them, it wasn't ready for the human way of surviving, and that was just the beginning. The liquid shimmered violently, sending ripples like lightning across its surface. Kael's pulse raced. That's not normal, he muttered, gripping the edge of the chamber. Mira, meanwhile, was laughing softly, water dripping from her hair in golden streaks. Normal is boring, she said, eyes twinkling with mischief. Besides, the Aelari don't get us. That's half the fun. Kael stared at her, incredulous. Fun? Mira, it glows, it hums, it. He paused as a ripple stretched unnaturally, forming shapes that seemed almost alive. It's responding to us. Outside, the Alari observer tilted its head, wings quivering in faint agitation. Its voice, still calm, carried a sharper edge. It is unprecedented. They manipulate the environment without touch or command. This is unacceptable. Mira hummed, letting the warm liquid lap her forearms. They call it torture. We call it a spa day. Simple as that. Kael's jaw tightened. She always did this, turned danger into play, risk into philosophy. But the ripples were changing. Shadows crept along the walls, twisting in impossible angles, reflecting in the liquid with an almost malevolent intent. Kael. Mira's voice lowered, serious now. Do you feel that? It's watching us, waiting. Kael swallowed hard. Yeah. And if it's waiting, we're running out of minutes. The chamber pulsed with sound. A low, vibrating hum that wasn't just noise, it was thought, presence, intelligence. Kael realized something terrifying. The liquid wasn't just alive. It was aware. It knew they were human. And humans were unpredictable. The Alari's voice cut through, sharp as ice. Time is measured. You must comply. Mira's eyes sparkled with defiance. Or we make time obey us. She leaned forward, letting the liquid swirl around her, feeling every vibration. Humans adapt. Humans survive. Humans. A sudden flash of violet light silenced her mid-sentence. The chamber shook and Kael felt the warmth turn almost searing. For a heartbeat, he panicked. Something massive was moving beneath the surface, something that had been dormant until now. Not so fun anymore, huh? Kael said, though his voice betrayed the thrill coursing through him. Fear and exhilaration danced together, a rhythm humans seemed to understand instinctively. Mira's grin returned, sharper now. Never fun if you're not alive enough to feel it. The liquid erupted in arcs of color, throwing shadows that resembled towers, forests, and creatures Kael couldn't name. The observer shifted uneasily. They persist in joy, in defiance. Kael realized then that humans didn't just survive the universe, they taunted it. Every instinct, every thrill, every laugh in the face of incomprehensible odds was a statement. And the liquid, the Alari, the chamber itself, they weren't ready. A sudden, deep vibration rattled the floor. Kael's ears rang. The observer's translucent wings flickered almost like a pulse of fear. Containment, failing, it whispered almost to itself. Mira's laughter cut through the tension, a bright, reckless sound. They call it torture. I call it training. Hot, fast, and dangerous, perfect. Kael's hand touched the liquid and it responded instantly, rising like a living serpent, coiling around his wrist without pain, only warmth. The hum intensified and Kael sensed the intelligence probing him, calculating, confused. You feel that, Kael? Mira said. Her voice was almost reverent. It expects us to break. It doesn't understand that we choose how we react. Kael nodded, adrenaline sharpening his mind. They think they control everything. They don't know humans. A deep vibration ran through the chamber again, louder, faster. The walls flickered, revealing glimpses of another realm just beyond perception. Strange geometry, impossible architecture, and hints of something enormous waiting. Unseen. Minutes, Kael muttered, remembering the warning. He felt the weight of the countdown in every beat of his heart. And yet he felt no fear, not the kind that paralyzed. Only focus, clarity, and that familiar human swagger that demanded the universe take notice. The observer's voice was barely audible, almost desperate. They are unyielding. Their physiology, their spirit. We did not account for this. Mira stretched her arms wide, letting the liquid surge around her. We can't be contained. Not by heat, not by light, not by fear. You tried and you failed. Humans always do. Kael smiled despite the rising tension. Something shifted beneath the liquid. A shadow, massive and fluid, moved closer. It wasn't attacking yet, but it was curious, intrigued, hesitant. And for the first time, Kael realized, humans didn't just survive alien torture. They transformed it. Turned fear into a weapon, chaos into advantage. Even a bath meant to kill could become a shield. The chamber's light flickered again. Time was almost up. And yet for Kael and Mira, the game was just beginning. A voice deeper and colder than the observer rumbled from beyond the walls. Humans, why do you laugh at your death? Mira grinned at Kael, eyes sparkling with fire. Because we're human. And with that, the liquid surged, the shadows twisted, and the unknown waited for the next move. The chamber shuddered as if it had inhaled a lungful of fear and exhaled a storm. Kael gripped the edge of the platform, feeling the heat pulse through his veins, his skin prickling with the raw awareness of the liquid beneath him. Mira floated in it, arms stretched like a conductor orchestrating chaos. The walls, Kael muttered. They're not walls. They're watching. Mira tilted her head, hair wet and clinging to her neck. Then let's watch back. She laughed, the sound cutting through the low hum like a blade. They think fear controls us. It doesn't. It fuels us. A shadow shifted beneath the liquid, a subtle ripple at first, then a wave that seemed to rise with intention. Kael could feel it probing, assessing, trying to find the point where humans would falter. Kael, Mira said softly. It's thinking about hurting us, but we already own this moment, even if it doesn't know it yet. The Aelari observer flitted closer, wings buzzing faintly, betraying a tension it could not mask. Its voice was calm, but its words trembled with uncertainty. Containment failing. Protocol insufficient. Kael's mind raced. Humans were predictable in ways aliens didn't understand. They could panic, yes, but they could also pivot, adapt, and turn any threat into leverage. That was what made them dangerous. Unreasonably dangerous. Minutes, Kael said, remembering the observer's earlier warning. We have less than... He froze as the liquid erupted violently, forming shapes around them, towering, shifting like liquid sculptures of something ancient. It wasn't just water or warmth anymore. It was aware. Mira laughed again. Minutes are for people who can't swim in eternity. Her hand brushed the glowing surface and the liquid shivered at her touch. It recoiled, curious but cautious. Kael's eyes narrowed. He realized something. The liquid, the chamber, the observers, they were all playing a game. Aelari called it torture, but humans called it home, and humans played by different rules. The shadow beneath the liquid surged forward, massive now, stretching impossibly in height, brushing the ceiling with tendrils that seemed alive. The observer's wings flared, a visual spike of panic. It adapts. It uses the environment against us. Mira's grin widened. We're the first they've met who don't scream, who don't flinch, who turn their torture into relaxation. Kael swallowed the rising fear and turned it into clarity. Humans always did that. They translated chaos into choice. The liquid pulsed at their presence. And he realized it was testing them, gauging them, trying to find a limit. Then let's give it a show, Kael said, rolling his shoulders and stepping fully into the glowing mass. It flowed around him like a serpent, warm and alive, but not hostile yet. Every movement, every breath became a negotiation, a subtle conversation with the intelligence beneath. The Aelari observer whispered urgently, wings trembling. Impossible. They shouldn't survive this. Mira's laughter broke the tension again. Oh, Kael, they never expected humans to enjoy it. That's the trick. Fear is their weapon, joy is ours. A sudden vibration split the air, a deep, resonating pulse that made the chamber walls ripple and quiver. Shapes began to emerge from the shadows. Tentacles of liquid. Eyes forming briefly and vanishing. Geometries that made Kael's stomach twist. This is it, Kael muttered, gripping Mira's hand. Whatever it is, it's testing the edge. The boundary of what we can handle. And we're human. That means... He smiled, voice low but full of confidence. We define that edge. The observer hovered closer, almost desperately. Its voice, calm and precise before, now carried the tremor of realization. They are not responding as anticipated. Humans adapt. Humans dominate. Mira's eyes sparkled with fire. They call it torture. We call it a bath. They call it fear. We call it curiosity. The universe doesn't get to decide our reaction. The chamber shuddered violently again, the shadows twisting, the liquid surging. But neither Kael nor Mira faltered. Their confidence radiated, unspoken, infectious even to the Aelari. The creatures had predicted reactions based on pain, terror, and resistance, but humans thrived in paradox. The shadow beneath the liquid lunged suddenly, a massive wave of darkness and light coiling around them. Kael felt the heat press against his chest, the pulse in the air synchronizing with his heartbeat. Fear would have broken anyone else. For humans, it sharpened focus, Mira whispered almost playfully. Ready to make it regret underestimating us? Kael grinned, teeth flashing in the dim, surreal glow. Always. The chamber erupted in color, movement, and sound, the liquid responding, morphing, but never harming them. The unseen intelligence recoiled in confusion, struggling to comprehend what it had encountered. And in that instant, Kael understood something profound. Survival was human instinct. Yes. But domination of fear, turning terror into strength, was uniquely human. The shadow paused, coiling like a question. The chamber trembled. The Ilari observer flinched, and the unknown beyond the walls seemed to hesitate. For a heartbeat, the entire universe held its breath and humans smiled. The Ilari observer hovered at the edge of the chamber, wings trembling like thin crystal under pressure. Its gaze, piercing and eternal, followed every ripple, every pulse of the liquid that had become alive with intent. For centuries, its species had catalogued fear, pain, and submission. Humans were supposed to fit neatly into the equation. They didn't. Impossible, the observer thought, each syllable a vibration in its translucent skull. They do not panic. They do not break. They flourish. Kael and Mira moved like dancers through the liquid, their bodies fluid, instinctive. Every step, every breath, every touch became an unspoken conversation with the chamber, a negotiation with the intelligence lurking beneath the surface. Kael, Mira said softly, her eyes flickering with amusement. I think it's scared. Kael's brow furrowed. Scared? Yes, she grinned, letting the warmth curl around her arms. The thing that was supposed to control us, it doesn't know what to do. Humans don't behave like prey. We challenge it. And look at it, it's confused. The observer recoiled, subtle but unmistakable. Wings fluttered against the humming walls. We miscalculated. Our instruments. Inadequate. It should succumb, it should scream. But the humans didn't scream. Instead, Kael lifted a hand, letting the liquid rise around his fingers like obedient water spirits. He felt its probing tendrils hesitate, retract slightly as though reconsidering the nature of its prey. The Ilari had never seen such confidence, such audacity, fused with calm clarity. They don't fear, the observer whispered, almost to itself. They adapt, they manipulate. Mira's laugh rang through the chamber, a sound bright and dangerous. Manipulate is one word. Survive is another. But I like yours better, it sounds classy. Kael shook his head, smiling despite the escalating danger. Humans had a way of turning peril into theater. A swagger that unsettled even beings who had witnessed millennia of war and death. And now their laughter, sharp, intelligent, alive, cut into the predictability the Ilari relied on. Outside the chamber, the walls vibrated. Shadows twisted into impossible geometries, and the liquid formed shapes that suggested creatures, landscapes, and machinery that should not have existed. Yet Kael felt no fear, only exhilaration. They think they're in control, Kael muttered, voice low. But the moment they see our joy, that's when we own this. The observer shifted uneasily, a rare sign of uncertainty. We underestimated the species. They are dangerous. Their resilience exceeds parameters. A low hum pulsed from the liquid, synchronized with Kael's heartbeat. It wasn't just alive. It was learning. And humans? Humans were teaching it how to respond to unpredictability, defying every protocol, every simulation the Ilari had relied on for generations. Mira's fingers traced a pattern in the glowing liquid. Each ripple she created seemed to challenge the entity, coaxing it, provoking it, testing its limits. They call this torture, she said softly. We call it breakfast, warm, inviting, and surprisingly educational. Kael chuckled, but his eyes never left the liquid. A tendril stretched, reaching toward him with intent sharp and deliberate. He didn't flinch. Instead, he mirrored its motion, slow and confident, guiding it gently back into a swirl. The liquid paused, confused. They command it without authority, the observer thought, wings vibrating in rapid, anxious beats. We have not seen this before. We cannot predict. We cannot contain. The shadows deepened, forming shapes that suggested movement from beyond the chamber. Something enormous lingered just out of perception, ancient and waiting yet uncertain. It had never encountered a human before. And in that uncertainty, Kael and Mira found opportunity. Minutes passed, or maybe seconds. Time had begun to warp under the pulse of the chamber. The threat was real, the unknown massive, and yet humans thrived in it. Not just surviving, not just resisting, but dominating the moment. Mira's eyes sparkled with reckless intelligence. Kael, do you think they realize what humans do when we stop fearing them? Kael smiled, heart hammering. They're about to find out. The observer's voice trembled now almost imperceptibly. They are not like anything. Their defiance, it grows. Exponentially. Kael and Mira moved together, synchronized, laughing, challenging, manipulating. The chamber had become a battlefield of wills. The Ilari had designed instruments for pain, for fear, for submission. But humans had turned it into something else entirely. A demonstration of dominance, resilience, and pure, unbreakable spirit. And beyond the walls, the massive intelligence that had stirred waited, hesitant. It sensed the anomaly, the unpredictability, the wildfire of humanity, and for the first time, it hesitated. Because humans didn't just survive what was meant to destroy them, they thrived. A tremor rolled through the chamber. Not the hum of the liquid this time. It was something deeper, a resonance that spoke of scale and intention beyond comprehension. Kael's heart skipped, but his grin never wavered. Mira's eyes sparkled, reflecting the undulating light, and she let the warmth lap around her like sunlight. They've sensed something, Kael said, voice low, measured. Something bigger than the room, bigger than the Ilari. Mira tilted her head, dripping wet hair framing her smirk. Good, I like big problems. They tend to have big solutions. The liquid surged violently, forming arcs and spikes that shot upward like crystalline flames. Tendrils reached toward them, probing with intent. Kael felt the pulse, the awareness behind the motion. The test of endurance. The unknown entity beyond the chamber was curious now, alert, and for the first time uncertain. Outside, the Ilari observer's wings vibrated rapidly. Containment. Compromised. Anomaly growing. Impossible to predict. Kael clenched his fists. Humans had always faced impossible odds, and they thrived in them. Not by luck, not by instinct alone, but by understanding the rules and bending them. Fear was optional. Strategy was essential. Joy was weaponized. The chamber shook, the shadows coiling like living predators. The liquid pulsed in response, forming shapes that suggested landscapes, beasts, and towers of impossible geometry. Kael realized it was trying to learn from them, adapting to their reactions. And humans didn't just adapt, they taught. Mira's laughter rang out, bright and fearless. Kael, it's trying to hurt us, but we're teaching it patience, curiosity, respect. Kael arched an eyebrow. Or confusion. Yes, she said softly, eyes gleaming. Mostly confusion. A tendril shot toward them with sudden speed. Kael twisted, catching it with both hands and guiding it into a spiral. The liquid obeyed him, dancing along the edge of control, alive but restrained. The chamber seemed to tremble in awe, or maybe frustration. Humans. The observer's voice quivered. They convert danger into dominance. They are impossible. Mira's hand grazed the surface again, ripples forming concentric rings that extended outward, touching every shadow, every pulse of the chamber. They call it torture, she said, voice low but confident. We call it life. Warm, messy, beautiful life. Kael smiled, feeling the energy of the chamber sync with his own heartbeat. Minutes, or maybe seconds, slipped away, but urgency sharpened rather than dulled their senses. The entity beyond the chamber shifted, massive and unseen, tentacles of thought probing, testing, challenging. You think it knows it's losing? Kael asked, eyes narrowing. Mira grinned. It thinks it's teaching. We're teaching it instead. The chamber pulsed violently, shadows twisting into towering, impossible forms. The Ilari observer winced. They are reshaping the test and the tool. The parameters all wrong. Kael stepped fully into the glowing liquid, letting it swirl around him. He could feel the intelligence probing for weakness, for fear, for the point where humans would falter. But there was none. Humans thrived on the edge. They relished the challenge. Mira's laughter rose again, echoing against the walls. Come on, Kael. Let's make sure they remember what humans do with minutes. Kael's grin was sharp, confident, unshakable. They're about to learn. The entity beyond the chamber surged, massive pulses of energy radiating through the walls. The liquid reacted violently, splashing like waves against unseen cliffs. Shadows twisted, forming shapes that should not exist. And yet Kael and Mira remained calm, synchronized, fearless. They weren't just surviving. They were dominating, teaching, adapting, The observer flinched. Impossible. They are evolution incarnate. They do not obey. Kael's voice cut through the chaos, steady, fearless. They call it torture. We call it a bath. You call it a problem you didn't anticipate. The liquid surged one final time, massive and deliberate, reaching toward the unseen presence. And for the first time, Kael sensed hesitation in the entity. Confusion, curiosity, a recognition that humans were not just prey. Humans were forces unto themselves. Mira leaned back, letting the warmth consume her. See? We don't just survive, Kael, we change the rules. Kael's eyes sparkled with exhilaration. And we're just getting started. Beyond the chamber, the shadows paused. The massive presence recoiled, uncertain. Humans had turned the game upside down. Not with power alone, not with strength alone, but with audacity, intelligence, and the unshakable conviction that fear did not define them. Minutes had passed, or maybe hours. Kael didn't care. Humans had a way of making time irrelevant when the stakes were highest. The unknown entity pulsed once more, massive and hesitant, and in that pause, Kael and Mira smiled, because humans didn't just challenge the universe. They commanded it, and the universe was beginning to understand. The chamber shook as if it had become the heartbeat of the universe itself. Shadows stretched into impossible forms, tendrils of liquid and light dancing violently across the walls. The massive, unseen entity beyond the chamber pulsed in awareness, probing, testing, frustrated. Kael gritted his teeth, standing knee-deep in the glowing liquid. Every fiber of his body vibrated with tension and anticipation. It's trying, he muttered. Trying to scare us, trying to hurt us, trying to control us. But it doesn't know humans. Mira's wet hair clung to her shoulders as she laughed, loud and fearless. It thinks we're in the bath. We're in command. There's a difference. A tendril of the liquid shot toward them, sharper and faster than ever. Kael caught it with both hands, twisting it into a coil that arced gracefully before snapping back like a living whip. The chamber responded instantly, pulsing with recognition of their mastery. Impossible, the Ilari observer whispered, wings vibrating in rapid, uneven bursts. Containment has failed. The test is compromised. Their response? Illogical. Unparalleled. Mira leaned back, letting the warmth flow around her. Kael, watch this. Humans don't panic. Humans don't flinch. Humans teach the universe its own rules. Kael's grin widened. He lifted a hand, guiding the liquid in spirals and arcs, communicating without words, challenging the entity beyond the chamber. The shadows twisted, recoiling, uncertain. The entity was massive, ancient, intelligent, but it had never encountered humans, and it didn't know what to do. They're learning from us, Kael said, voice low, full of conviction. Every move we make, they adapt. Every choice, they hesitate. Every laugh we make, they miscalculate. The chamber pulsed violently. The liquid surged upward, tendrils reaching for the unseen presence. A vibration ran through the floor, a low, resonating pulse that seemed to speak directly to the human mind. Kael felt it not as fear, but as a challenge, a dialogue. Mira laughed again. It thinks it's the predator. We are the predators. Humans survive. Humans dominate. Humans define the rules. The unseen entity recoiled in massive pulses, shadows twisting in confusion. Kael realized something profound. This force, this ancient presence was powerful, yes, but it had one critical flaw. It had never encountered a species that thrived on paradox, that weaponized joy, that transformed fear into strategy. Minutes, Kael muttered, remembering the observer's early warning. But the concept of time had shifted. Humans didn't measure survival in minutes. They measured it in control, adaptation, audacity. A tendril of liquid wrapped around Kael's arm, almost like a hand, testing. He didn't resist. Instead, he guided it, twisting and shaping, turning its probing energy into arcs of light that radiated outward. The chamber responded like a sentient instrument, harmonizing with his will. Mira's eyes gleamed. See, Kael? They call it torture. We call it a bath. They call it fear. We call it opportunity. The Ilari observer shivered visibly, its wings trembling with tension. We misjudge them entirely. The massive presence beyond the chamber pulsed again. Larger, faster, a wave of intent and energy that should have crushed them. Kael met it with a grin. He stepped fully into the surge, letting it flow over him, absorb him, challenge him. And instead of breaking, he commanded it. Mira mirrored his movements, synchronized, fearless, a living counterpoint. The chamber's light exploded in waves of gold, purple, and deep crimson. Shadows twisted, recoiling, uncertain. The unknown entity, ancient, vast, intelligent, paused. For the first time, Kael realized they had done the impossible. They weren't just surviving. They weren't just resisting, they were winning. The observer's voice trembled. They convert pain into power, fear into... Kael stepped closer to Mira, hands brushing the surface of the living liquid. They don't understand humans, he said quietly, almost to himself. Humans don't just survive. Humans redefine survival. Humans dominate what's meant to destroy them. The chamber pulsed once more. Shadows twisted. The tendrils of liquid coiled and recoiled, and the massive presence beyond finally hesitated. Uncertainty radiating in every ripple, every pulse, every shift in the chamber. Mira leaned back, eyes closed, letting the warmth wash over her. We didn't just beat it, Kael. We made it understand. Kael smiled, heart pounding with exhilaration. Not understand, respect. Beyond the chamber, the universe itself seemed to pause, stunned by the audacity, resilience, and sheer ingenuity of humans. They had taken what was meant to destroy them and turned it into an instrument of power. The chamber's light dimmed slightly, the liquid settling into calm waves. Shadows lingered, curious, hesitant, but no longer threatening, and for the first time, Kael and Mira felt the simple, unshakable truth that humans had always known. No matter how ancient, intelligent, or massive a force might be, humans were never just prey. Humans were commanders of their own destiny, and the universe was just beginning to realize it. The chamber had quieted, but the energy lingered, humming beneath the surface like a heartbeat of the cosmos itself. The shadows that had twisted and surged now curled in still curiosity, hesitant, almost reverent. Kael stood waist-deep in the liquid, chest heaving, every muscle alive with adrenaline. Mira's wet hair clung to her shoulders, her grin still sharp, defiant, fearless. They had faced the unimaginable, and yet they were unbroken. They're watching differently now, Kael said quietly, eyes scanning the shadows. Not hostile, curious, almost cautious. Mira tilted her head, letting the warmth curl around her. That's the human effect, she said softly. We don't just survive the universe. We make it pause, rethink, respect us. The Alari observer hovered closer, wings quivering, no longer radiating authority but something closer to awe. We had underestimated them. Entirely, it whispered, voice trembling with revelation. Kael smiled faintly, chest still pounding. They called it torture. We called it a bath. They called it fear. We called it curiosity. That's the difference. Humans choose. Mira laughed softly, almost like a sigh of relief. We choose to be alive, to feel everything, even when the odds are impossible. And that's why we win, every single time. A ripple of light passed through the liquid, soft now, warm, almost tender. The massive entity beyond the chamber, ancient, intelligent, vast, had not fled, had not surrendered. It had paused, learned, and acknowledged something profound. Kael understood it instinctively. Survival was instinct. Dominance was skill. But humans were teaching. They had turned a force meant to destroy into a lesson, and that lesson was simple. Humanity was never meant to be predictable, contained, or conquered. The chamber's warmth enveloped them, not threatening, not test-like anymore, but embracing. Kael lifted a hand, letting it ripple across the liquid surface. It responded instantly, alive but calm, obedient but curious. Mira leaned closer, eyes reflecting the soft glow. Kael, think about it. They've never met anyone like us before, not even the oldest intelligence in the sector. And now, they have to think twice. Kael nodded, a slow smile spreading across his face. Humans, we don't just survive the impossible. We teach the impossible what it means to respect life, to respect joy, to respect choice. The Alari observer's voice softened, almost reverent. They are extraordinary, not merely resilient, dominant in spirit. Mira stretched out her arms, letting the warmth swirl around her. They call it torture. We call it a bath. That's the whole story. Kael's eyes sparkled. He stepped closer to Mira, letting the liquid lap around them both. And the rest of the universe? His voice dropped, confident, commanding. We'll remember it. For the first time, silence fell. Not fear, not tension, not expectation, just silence. The shadows lingered, curious, as if the chamber itself waited for the next move. But Kael and Mira didn't move. They didn't have to. Humans had already spoken with action, laughter, and willpower. A heartbeat passed, then another, and in that stillness Kael realized something larger than himself, larger than Mira, larger than any chamber, alien or intelligence. The universe didn't own humans. Humans owned themselves, and with that ownership came the power to redefine the rules, even when the odds were impossible, even when the forces were ancient and unfathomable. Mira's hand brushed Kael's, a spark of warmth and mischief in her eyes. "So, Spade?" Kael laughed, a low, satisfied sound that echoed in the chamber. "Spade," he agreed. "The universe can take notes." Beyond the chamber, the massive presence pulsed one final time, slower, deliberate, aware. It had learned. It had hesitated. It had understood. Humans didn't just exist. They transformed every encounter into a testament of their spirit, and humans would continue to do so. The chamber's light dimmed to a soft golden glow, ripples of the liquid moving gently, responding to the human's laughter and movement. Outside, the Alari observer folded its wings, silent now, its understanding complete. Kael and Mira rose from the liquid, dripping, exhilarated, victorious, not because they had fought alone, but because they had proved something universal, that humanity's courage, intelligence, and joy were forces no alien, no chamber, no ancient presence could contain. The bath had ended, but humanity's defiance and its relentless spirit had only begun. And somewhere, in the shadows beyond perception, the universe itself had taken note.